French President Emmanuel Macron and the First Lady of France headed home after a three-day visit to Washington. He came to the country with the intention of swaying the president on a number of issues. He may have succeeded in getting the president to consider a change of his stance on Syria.
We want to come home. We'll be coming home, but we want to have a very, very strong, we want to leave a strong and lasting footprint, and that was a very big part of our discussion.
And joining me now, former strategist to President Trump, Fox News national security strategist Sebastian Gorka, also author of the book Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. Seb, good to have you with us. Your thoughts?
I just want to be, can I also be savant with portfolio? That's
absolutely, absolutely. And I want to apologize for not making clear that you had that portfolio and title. It's great to see you. The president, talking about a lasting footprint in Syria. Apparently Macron has said something to the president that is formidable in the view of the president and perhaps persuasive.
I wouldn't be so sure. So let's wait till we hear something concrete in terms of Syria. Having worked with the man, having seen what he's done for the last 15 months, and actually speaking to him about these issues years ago when we first met, he fundamentally, he has this default setting, which is not to have our troops around the world. Yeah. It's always the same. Bring them home. If there's a real issue, we'll deal with it. But sending lots of troops and occupying other people's territory, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't infer from anything Macron had said that he was talking about a massive number of our troops. I heard more that he was talking about a strategy on the part of the NATO countries, the European Union, and the United States that would be strategic and again, have a lasting impact, as he put it, on the outcome with the Iranians, the Russians, boosting Assad. But we'll see, as you say, what the president has to say. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, anything is possible. Remember, this is the man who they said wanted to dissolve NATO and would destroy NATO. And what do we have? Not only the Secretary General of NATO, but now we have the Premier of France saying, you want us to take our fair burden? We're going to actually start defending ourselves and paying. So, you know, the Europeans getting more serious about strategic effect, anything's possible.
Yep, we're going to find out what's possible Friday when Angela Merkel shows up to talk free trade, running these chronic trade surpluses with the United States, which must not certainly please the president. Let's turn to the Iranian deal. The president says he's going to get out of it effectively. It seems like there's really no other option given the fact that he has said it's a terrible deal from the moment he ran for the presidency to now. And not many people, including Macron, are willing to argue with him. Suddenly, Macron was talking about a new deal, perhaps, but not the old deal.
Well, there's a very good reason for that. If you look at the largest trading partners for the Islamic Republic, guess who they are? They're not America. They're European nations, France included, Germany, absolutely. So they have vested interests in maintaining a regime that allows them to do business with the mullahs. But the president wants to kill this deal, Lou, and if he decides to do so, I'm sorry, the Europeans are just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt there right now. This president, 15 months into this administration, his first term, he is setting the global agenda. He is now the Western world leader. And there is no one who has even a scintilla of an original idea with which to compete with the Trump doctrine, the Trump agenda. Let's turn to James Comey. This is a man who, and I think we must, because for no other reason, he just continues to support what a monstrous mess we have in Washington, D.C., represented by the deep state. James Comey was fired and then at the same time acknowledged that he is part of the deep state, which is, as he put it, unchangeable, and no president could do anything about it with only one term in office. This is a man who has absolutely, Comey, who seems to have absolutely no way in which he can communicate straightforwardly, be direct with Congress, be direct with the Inspector General's office. This is a man with a very fundamental issue with truth and honesty.
Absolutely. The FBI's informal motto for the initials FBI is fidelity, bravery, integrity. This man has none of them. He's a coward and he's a liar, and he has no moral compass. He's now taken counsel. He's taken a lawyer during his book tour. Lou, when I was on my book tour for Defeating Jihad, I didn't need a lawyer. Why does he need a lawyer? Because he's part of a conspiracy. We now know. We know that this man exonerated Hillary Clinton before the investigation had got close to concluding. Now, why did he do that? I think Andy McCarthy is right. Obama was communicating with Hillary on that unsecure server using sensitive information. If she was prosecuted, guess who else had to be prosecuted? The president. And so she was cleared by the deep state. And now they're trying to cover their tracks. And it's too late, because guess what? Hillary lost and we have a different president. So a lot of people are going to be standing in the dock. And guess what? James Comey might be one of them.
Three guess whats. Three guess whats, Seb.
I'm sorry, but I didn't say look. I didn't say look.
You were amazing. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, thanks for being with us.
Thank
Good to see you.